example account, and we'll walk through just the tag manager setup together. Okay. Now, if any of you are taking notes, you don't have to. So all the materials here are going to be available at this URL right here, teach2fishdigital.com/tag. So you'll find the presentation materials, also our resources Word doc with a bunch of links and tips and thoughts and things like that. So if you just want to kick back, I know it's holiday season and you want to relax a little bit and just kind of observe, feel free to do so, because all the materials are going to be available at that link. Okay. And again, talking to some people who I knew were going to attend, there's different levels of experience with Tag Manager amongst this group. Some are don't have a lot of experience or have not used Tag Manager before, and so we're going to cover the basics. Others might be in Tag Manager every day and are looking for a few different tips to improve their process and efficiency and things like that. So if you look at this, a little table here, along the x-axis we have time, 0 to 60. I don't know if we'll use the full 60 minutes today, but we'll do what we can. And then on the y-axis we have what I'd like to call the nerd index. Okay, and so we're going to start out with the basics, and as time goes on, we're going to ramp up to some more sophisticated, exact, nerdy topics. Okay, so if you're into some nerdy stuff, just hang out to the end. We're also, I've got most everybody on mute on the webinar. If you want to place yourself on mute, go right ahead. We will do questions toward the end. So if you have a question, please save it toward the end. And what we'll do is we'll utilize the chat to signify the fact that you've got a question, and we will unmute individuals who have individual questions, and we'll talk through those. Okay. So let's jump into Tag Manager. Now, there are many different types of Tag Manager solutions out there, software out there. The one that's probably the most popular is Google Tag Manager, so I'll cover that one specifically. But know that you don't have to use Google Tag Manager if you're looking for a tag management solution. There are more robust and more specific Tag Manager software packages out there other than Google. I prefer Google because it's free. And so Google Tag Manager, the primary benefit is really efficiency. And so no matter what kind of site you might manage, you probably have some tags on it. So Google Analytics tags, maybe you've got some AdWords tags or remarketing tags. If you do any Facebook advertising, you probably have some Facebook ad tags. AdRoll is another remarketing network similar to Google AdWords remarketing. Crazy Egg is a heat mapping tool that allows you to see how people scroll through the website, so on. And A/B Tasty is kind of like an A/B testing software. So these are just some sample software packages that work really well with Tag Manager. And what the idea is that as opposed to placing individual tags for each one of these software options, which would get really messy and really convoluted and kind of unwieldy very quickly, you have a tag manager, or essentially a container tag, which kind of acts like a bucket. So as opposed to placing individual tags on a website, you just place one tag. And through a separate interface, which we'll kind of talk through as we go this morning, you can place all those individual tags into this container tag and manage them all from there. And what that does is it creates efficiency. Okay, so that's really the main benefit of Google Tag Manager, is efficiency. You can really do a lot with a little with Tag Manager and control what could be a very unwieldy and confusing situation if you've got way too many tags on a website, or just a lot of tags that you all need. Okay. Another big benefit of using Tag Manager is avoiding a scenario kind of like this. Now, I am a marketing person. I'm not a developer. I know enough about code to look at it and understand what it is, but I couldn't really. I could build you a website, but I don't know if I could code a website from scratch per se. So I'm a marketing guy, and a lot of times in my history, I have had to either work directly with somebody on my team or a client team to place a tag for analytics or AdWords or some kind of tracking campaign tag, right? So anything we might use for marketing. So in many cases, I've had to send a message like this to a friendly IT resource or webmaster or web administrator, in which I say, hey, I've got this campaign I'm running. I would love to place this tracking script on the website. Can you help me do that? I don't have access to the site. Can you help me place that code? And typically the IT resource says, yeah, no problem, send it my way. And then I'll send a nice message back saying, thanks very much. Now, if you are like me and you are a marketing person and you've had to have this conversation before, there is a distinct possibility that you have had this happen as well, where maybe a couple weeks go by and you're looking at your campaign metrics and you notice things are a little bit off and it doesn't really look like things are working too well, and you're starting to get a little nervous and anxious, and you send that same IT person a nice note saying, numbers for the campaign seem kind of light. Were you able to add that tracking script? And no offense to any IT person, but stuff happens and maybe that person forgot, right? And so that is a scenario that we definitely want to avoid. And with Tag Manager, what you can do is make sure that you have control over the tags on your website, on your landing page, on your app, and you save time. And so as opposed to wasting 2 weeks of really valuable campaign time, you can place a tag on your own. We'll talk through about how just to do that here in a moment. Okay. The last real benefit, I think, is kind of demonstrated through a couple of different websites that I found on the web that are not currently utilizing a tag management system. So anybody has probably seen these little notebooks around. You can buy them at like an office supply store. I think they sell them at coffee shops and things like that too. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. I pronounce it Moleskine, but that could be just my uneducated American self. It's an Italian company, so I believe it could be Moleskine. I don't know. It's a notebook, and they sell notebooks on this website. And on the website, I took a look at the backend code and found a number of different tags. All right, so there's tags for Google Analytics. There's tags for Facebook. There's tags for a software called LifeRate, which is kind of like a personalization software that helps with not only content on the site, but also the ads that you deliver to people based upon what experiences they had on your website. And there are also a number of other Google Analytics tags called event tags. So event tags, we'll talk more about those here in a minute as well. But event tags are almost like on-click tracking tags that allow you to track things like those little social icons, or clicks to a buy button, or clicks to expand an image or watch a video, or clicks off-site, things of that nature. So on-click tags can be placed with Google Analytics and Tag Manager as well. So is this site a candidate for Tag Manager? I would say, yeah, absolutely. They've got a number of tags here that could easily be placed through one solution. And looking through this website, took me a little while to find them all, but there's 13 tags just on this page. That doesn't count the potentially dozens and if not hundreds of other pages on their site that also need to be tagged. So avoiding a situation where we have to manually tag everything is great. It saves a lot of time and helps us get our house in order. Now here's another one. This is from a company called Shutterfly. They actually have offices just up the street from me here in Arizona. I also took a look at this one. I don't want to tell you how long it took me to find all the tags, but it took quite a bit of time. Let's just say it's at least 20 minutes or so. But I found a bunch of tags on their page too. And so they don't use a tag manager, but they use Adobe Analytics, which is a kind of a competitor to Google. They use Facebook, iPerceptions, which is kind of like a customer review software. They've got AdWords tags and Google DoubleClick tags. They also use a software called Bloomreach. I found a tag on their site for that. And I believe Bloomreach, I don't know much about it, but I think that's also another personalization tag. And they also use kind of an ad tracking tool and a custom display, kind of like a personalized advertising program called Conversant. Okay, and so now they don't use those on-click tags like Moleskine does. Because they use Adobe Analytics, and Adobe Analytics automatically tracks on-click behavior, which is great. And just because they use Adobe Analytics doesn't mean they don't need to use a tag manager. I think look at all these tags. If you were to track all the different on-click behaviors for this particular website, I counted up to 26 just on this page. And so I think they are also a great candidate for using a tag manager, whether it's Google Tag Manager or something else. The point here is that imagine that you are the marketing director or the VP of marketing. You just got hired for Shutterfly and you're trying to get your house in order. To repeat the process that I did to find all these tags and make sense of all the tags. And again, I don't even know if I found them all. is not an enviable task. And so using a tag manager not only helps from a time management perspective and efficiency perspective, but it also helps us stay really organized and make sure that we have an understanding of where all of our tags lie, what tags we're using, what tags are firing, what tags are not firing. And I don't know if Copernicus said this or not. I'd like to think he did, because someone who relies upon mathematics and structure and order probably needs to get their stuff together. And that's essentially what Tag Manager does. Okay. So like I said, we're going to run through a real life use case. This is a lovely little community in Payson, Arizona, about 90 minutes north of Phoenix, about 80 minutes if my wife drives. It is a golf community. It is kind of like a posh luxury resort type of place, not too far from the Mogollon Rim. If you've never been to that part of the world, you should definitely go. But they don't have Tag Manager on their site, and so we're going to help them place some tags on their site today. Okay. To do this, we'll walk through Tag Manager. Now, when you set up an account in Tag Manager, if you've never done this before, it kind of looks like this, where you will create an account and you get to choose what kind of account or what kind of container or bucket tag you want to create. You can create things for web pages, AMP pages, which are getting very popular from an SEO perspective. And you can also create containers for iOS apps or Android apps and things like that. For this one, we're just going to create a web container, okay? And so a lot of people ask, well, what's that look like? Well, here you go. This is kind of what the tag, well, it's not kind of what the tag, it is what the tag looks like. And so what you'll want to do is, here's the part where you probably will have to work with an IT resource or a web administrator to place this tag and this tag alone. If you are replacing something else or a number of tags with Tag Manager, that is a process. So you'll want to do that very carefully and very diligently with someone who knows what they're doing with the code. Because what you don't want to have happen is you place Tag Manager code and you don't replace any of the other code you've got, and so you might be double counting things. So when you place or when you replace tags that you've already got with Tag Manager, make sure that you delete all the appropriate things and test everything extremely diligently with a fine-tooth comb, as they say. Okay. So, but this is what the tag looks like. If you want to work with an IT resource, you can do that. If you don't have one, if you use WordPress, for example, there are several GTM or Google Tag Manager WordPress plugins. I think the most popular one is literally called Google Tag Manager for WordPress. They weren't really creative with that name, but there you go. But this is the tag and what it looks like, and that'll go in the head of the code and also a little snippet in the body, right? So for that site we just talked about, I already placed that in there, so we're done there. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through a simple tagging exercise in which we place some Google Analytics tag, some AdWords tags for remarketing and conversion tags, and then an Optimizely tag. And Optimizely is like an A/B split testing tool that I rely upon quite a bit. So we'll talk through that as well. Okay. Now, when we go in here into Tag Manager, you're going to find three really important kind of concepts or things in here. So there are variables, triggers, and tags. Okay, and we're going to talk more about these as we go, but it's important, I think, to kind of understand what these are from a conceptual level first. So variables are things that you can control. There's some kind of built-in variables that you can turn on and off within Tag Manager. But a variable is kind of like an element, just a simple element on a page. So a variable could be like the URL. A variable could be a link that you click, the URL of that click or the text of that click. A variable could be a form submission. There's all kinds of different variables. A variable could be like the title of the page. So all the little elements that go into not only the makeup of the page, but the collection of behaviors that the visitor can take on that page. Okay, so just kind of know that for a minute. We'll talk more about those in a sec. I'm going to skip over triggers for a second and talk about tags. So tags are almost like the keys that you would play on a piano, or the notes you would play. So the variables are kind of like musical notes. The tags are, you read the notes and you play the tag. Okay, and so variables are very much dependent upon tags and vice versa. And tags are like the tags you would place for Google Analytics or for AdWords or Optimizely and so on. Okay. Now triggers show the relationship between variables and tags. And so the combination and the order in which variables come into play, triggers basically provide direction on which tags to fire. Okay. And so it's kind of important to think about this. And obviously there's a lot of structure involved here, but if you do think about it like writing music, obviously it's a very kind of nerdy thing and very analytical thing to create a tag manager, but it can also be very elegant if it's done correctly. Okay, so that's one kind of analogy I use often to kind of explain the difference between variables, triggers, and tags. And like I said, we're going to do this before, or we're going to do this in real time so you can see all these elements. Okay. Now, since we're kind of writing music, it's also important to do a sound check. And so to do that, we will be using a couple different things to do that. And these are checks that I recommend as you're creating your own tag management plan and creating tags on your own. So you'll want to use the Google preview pane. So in preview and debug mode in Tag Manager, you can see if tags are firing or not. So you can place a tag, check it out real quick, make sure it's working correctly before you publish it, go live, which is nice. And then the analytics, you want to make sure that if you're placing analytics tags, for example, that those tags are firing and everything is working properly. And you can do that with the real-time reports in Google Analytics. Okay, and so we'll talk about those as well. All right, so let's jump out of here for a moment, and we will go directly to our tag management tool. Bring this over real quick. Here we go. All right, so this is what Google Tag Manager looks like. Now again, we are doing this for this Rim Club, which again is like a real estate community / golf club in Payson, Arizona. So we're going to place some tags here. Now one tag I already placed is for the analytics tag. So if you want to grab and see what your tags look like, you can jump into tags. So you can see tags, triggers, and variables. Now again, we're going to start off basic and then get more sophisticated and nerdy as we go. So what I did is I created a simple analytics page view tag. Let's take a look at this one. So what this allows us to do is place a universal analytics tag for Google Analytics, identify our tracking ID, which is unique to our analytics account, and then the track type on this one is going to be called page view. So we want this one to fire when someone views a page. Okay, it's a simple analytics tag. Now the trigger is again instructions for what tags to fire when based upon the variables we have available to us, and that is just going to be on all pages. So we want this tag to fire on all pages. Now, here's the first little trick. You'll notice that there is a UA-5396 blah blah blah. This is the individual tracking tag for the Heritage Collection at the Rim Analytics account. So you can get this in Analytics if you just go to your admin tab in Analytics. This is mine for my website. And here's my tag right here. So if you go to the property settings and go to tracking info and tracking code, you can find that code. Okay, so this one right here is the one for the Rim Club. I'm going to copy this for a second. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new variable, and it's going to be a custom variable. Because I know that we're going to be using that code quite often, I'm going to create a constant variable, okay? And I'm going to call it analytics ID. And there's all kinds of different variable types. There's ones for URL, custom JavaScript. Don't be intimidated by these just yet. We'll talk more about some of these here in a moment. But this is a constant variable, and we want the value of that variable to be our tracking code for analytics. I'm going to save that. Now it's important to know that we've got that constant there because we can go back into our tag here and update it and just remove this. And because I'm going to be doing a number of different analytics tags, I just want to use a custom variable so I don't have to type that crazy code in every time. I'm just going to hit this variable button right here, which is going to allow me to add in analytics ID, which I just created. So it's going to pull in dynamically that ID. So when I create more analytics tags for events and things of that nature, I don't have to retype that every time. I've got a constant. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Let's go ahead and publish it. So every time you've got something new in Tag Manager that you are ready to go live with, you just publish it. Okay, and it's going to check, make sure that I want to publish this. Now, right here, I've got the option. If you want to do this, you can. I'm going to skip it. But if you use Tag Manager with a team and you want to keep records of all the different tag updates or new published versions you've got, you can add a description into here to say, oh, this is the tag, or this is the version where I added the Google Analytics page view tag. I'm going to skip that for now. Okay, so that is firing, or that is updating. Now, we talked earlier about real-time reports, which are right here. So it looks like we've got somebody on the site in Los Angeles, which is great. And I'm going to also turn on the preview pane. Okay, and so when I hit this little arrow right next to publish, I can see preview. Okay, now I'm in preview mode. Now this is extremely helpful because we can see whether we want to publish it or preview it before we publish it, the fact that the tag is firing. So I'm going to refresh this page, and you'll notice at the bottom of this page, this little pane is going to show up. And it looks like the tags fired on this page include Analytics Page View. So we're good there, right? It's firing. And if I go to a different page, like the real estate page or whatever, same thing. That tag is firing. So we've got a nice little record here of all the tags that are firing right now. It's pretty simple. We just have that one tag, but let's add another one. Okay, and so we talked earlier about adding a tag for Optimizely. Now Optimizely is right here. It is an A/B split testing software. So what it allows you to do is if you place this script on your page or pages, you can run A/B split tests. So if you want to see if how the conversion or sales for a particular page or product change if you change the headline, or if you change the graphic, or if you change the call to action or anything, you can manage all that through Optimizely, which is just a standard A/B split testing software. Okay, so I'm going to take this code and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to create a new tag. So let's go to our overview. I'm going to create a new tag real quick, and we're going to call this one testing Optimizely. Now, when I create a new tag, I'm just going to hit anywhere in here, and you'll notice that there are already some very specific tag types available to me. So they know, the good people at Google know that you might want to put in an analytics tag or an AdWords tag or something for DoubleClick or Optimize, which is a competitor to Optimizely, their new A/B split testing tool. I don't see anything in here for Optimizely. There's a lot of other tools in here. I see A/B Tasty, which is another competitor to Optimizely. Here's AdRoll. Here's Crazy Egg. We talked about that one. You might recognize some software tools that you rely upon and use a lot as well. Okay, but I don't see Optimizely in here. So what we're going to have to do here is create a custom HTML tag. And I copied that tag just a moment ago here, and I'm just going to paste it in. Okay, so I've got my tag set up. Now I've got to configure the trigger. And the trigger is going to say, all right, here are the instructions for when and where to fire this tag. Okay, now I could open this up and say, yep, I want this to go on all pages, but I don't know if I want to do that. Like, let's say I'm actually okay with how my home page is configured, and I just want to test like the real estate pages and maybe some golf club pages and things like that. So what I have to do is create very specific instructions that say only fire the Optimizely tag on the real estate section or the golf section. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in and create a new trigger. And the new trigger is going to be called page real estate. Okay. And I want to say we've got a lot of different trigger types available to us. We've got links and elements and custom events and even timers, which we're going to talk about later. Here's a page view. And it says, all right, page view all pages? No, I want some pages. And so I'm going to say I want the page path, which we're going to talk about here in a second, to contain real estate. Because the page path or the page URL includes real estate on every version of this real estate section. So if I go to like luxury residences, it's still there. If I go to custom home sites, it's still there in the URL. Okay, so because that's a commonality amongst those real estate pages, I can include that. So I'm going to save that. And now I've got that set to fire on the real estate pages. Now let's say I also want to include the golf pages too. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a new trigger called pages golf. It's going to be a page view on some pages, and the page path contains, well, let's check. I think it's golf. Yeah, it's golf. So we're just going to say golf. All right. So any page path or page URL, and you can see all those, like if you, for example, if you go into variables right here in your preview pane. And you can see what variables are available to us. So here's page path. This one includes golf membership overview. Here's the full page URL. So you've got a lot of variables in here already. Remember, these are like the musical notes that we've got available to us that we can play. Okay. So that one page path contains golf. Yep, that's set to go. And I can save this now. I think it's good. And I'm going to, I want to see if that worked or not before I publish it. But what I have to do first is refresh my preview mode. Okay, so I'm going to refresh that. I'm going to refresh this page. And now you can see that not only the analytics page view tag fired, but so did the testing Optimizely tag. Now, if I go to like the pacing section, which we didn't tag with Optimizely, only the analytics tag fires. If I go to any of the real estate pages, the Optimizely tag fires there because I gave it that specific instruction. Okay. All right. So that's kind of how you set up really basic tags. Now I know that a number of you are utilizing AdWords. Okay, so let's talk about how to do some of the AdWords tagging. Okay, so in a separate window here, I've got the AdWords conversion tracking. So you can create different conversions for your AdWords tracking. So you can see, all right, does this keyword actually do anything? Does this ad group produce conversions for us? And so the conversion type here I've got is anybody who completes this form on the contact us page, which is going to be going to this thank you page right here. Okay, so this is where we want to place our conversion tag so that we know that we were successful and people came from AdWords to complete that form, and we've got a lead. Now, they will give you within this AdWords setting the code right here. Okay, now if you want, you can just copy this whole thing and just plug it right into Tag Manager as a custom tag. But you might have noted earlier that if we wanted to do an AdWords tag, I'm going to call this AdWord or advertising AdWords conversion. Here's my new tag, and then I want AdWords conversion tracking. Okay, so I could just cut and paste that thing and do a custom HTML, but let's see what this does, this AdWords conversion tracking. So what this is asking for here is conversion ID and conversion label. Now without these two values right here, it won't work. Okay. Now I can put in conversion value and order ID and currency code, especially if I've got like e-commerce, but this is just a simple lead gen site. So all I need to do here is just grab the conversion ID and the conversion label. Okay. So if I go back here, I've got that code right here. Here's the conversion ID. So we kind of have to know what to look for here. But if you look in this code, the conversion ID is right here. It's that 977 number. And the conversion label is right here. Okay. So if I plug those values in, let me do that real quick. And then I've got my conversion label. Okay. And that should be set up. Now, again, I only want this one to fire on the thank you page. Okay. And so if I look at the variable for this page, the page path on this one is /contact-us-thank you. I'm going to copy that one real quick. And then I'm going to create a trigger that says page thank you. And that page view is going to be on some pages, and the page path not contains but equals contact us thank you. All right, so I'm going to save that, and that should be good to go. I'm going to save that, and again I'm going to refresh my preview here just to make sure that that's working properly. If I refresh this guy as well, thank you page, it's taking its sweet time. Let's try that again. All right, that's taking its time. I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll have to revisit that. But what we'll do here is go back to Tag Manager, and we will create, let's see if it actually worked. Here we go. Summary. So we've got our analytics page view and our advertising AdWords conversion. So it did actually fire. It finally came around. We'll have to talk to the host about what's going on with the speed of this site, as well as placing tags. So in the tag manager, what we'll want to do is let's do an AdWords remarketing tag. Okay, so we're going to create a new tag, and we're going to call it advertising and AdWords remarketing. Now the same thing applies. So we can just grab our analytics or our AdWords remarketing tag and place it in as a custom HTML tag. But we can also utilize this AdWords remarketing. Okay, so let me go back to that AdWords account, and over in this screen here, I've got a tag that I created for this particular account. So within the shared library within AdWords, you go to audiences and you can create new tags and remarketing lists. So remarketing, if you're not familiar, is a tool that AdWords utilizes that allows you to track people who come to your website, so you can show ads to them and encourage them to come back to your website in case they didn't convert and so on. Okay. So for this one, we've got a tag available to us right out of the gate. The issue with this one is if we look really closely at this tag, it contains a conversion ID, but it does not include a conversion label. And we need that to make this tag work. So that's a really important thing for Tag Manager to make remarketing work, is that you need both to make it work. So what I did is if you create, get out of here real quick, if you create a custom tag based upon website visitors, what you want to do is create some kind of tag, and then as opposed to visitors of a page with a specific tag. Okay, now that tag, when you do that, will give you what you need. So I already did this, and I'm going to go in here and we're going to look at this tag, and if I grab this tag right here, you can see that I've got the conversion ID right here, as well as the conversion label right here. Okay, so I'm going to grab those two variables and put them in there. Do that really quickly. Now, because this one we want to show on all pages, the trigger for this one's going to be really simple. It's just going to be all pages. Okay. Now, there are some custom parameters you can set here. We're not going to get into that detail today, but that's how you grab your conversion ID and your conversion label for your AdWords remarketing. Now, the triggering on that one is going to be all pages. Now we hit save, and we are done. Let's refresh and make sure that that's firing on every page that we've got. Okay, so we're on our home page again, and if we look at the summary, we've got our advertising, AdWords remarketing, and our analytics page view. Okay, that's great. We're good. All right, so we've got some simple tags placed. Let's get a little bit more sophisticated. And we talked earlier about on-click events for analytics. We're going to do that now. We're going to place some on-click events. And let me first talk about what an on-click event really is. Okay, so within Google Analytics, there's a number of different conversion types. The really simple ones are you can track how you can create a conversion if someone spends X amount of time on your website. Let's say you want to create a conversion when someone spends like 5 minutes or more on your website. You can also create a conversion for people who spend or who view Y number of pages. So let's say you want to create a conversion for people who see 4 or more pages on your website. You can do all those. I think those are okay. They're not extremely valuable to me. I think they're more valuable to people like in the media who need to sell advertising. But the two types of conversions that I rely upon most often in Google Analytics include destination conversions. So destination conversions are just like the one we created for the contact thank you page. So if people get to that page, we know that we have success, right? People get to the here's your product confirmation purchase page, right? Or your thank you for subscribing to our newsletter page. Any confirmation or thank you page, that's a destination oriented goal. Events are another type of conversion goal, but those are more click oriented. And so you want to create an event goal when someone clicks to another website that is important to you, or watches a video, or clicks to open a PDF, or clicks to or taps to dial a phone number and things like that. So things like PDFs or videos or phone numbers or different websites that you don't control, on which we cannot place Google Analytics tracking code like we can for thank you pages, we need events. Okay, we need to create events. So in order to do that, what I recommend is creating a separate document, which I call a metrics matrix. And this is just a sample. But here you see on the left-hand side goals or different types of conversions, the goal or conversion type, and then the destination for that conversion or the event label for that conversion. Okay, so for example, the first one is email subscription. That is a destination-oriented goal. And the thank you page for that is example.org/subscribe. Thank you. Okay, same thing on contact form. That's a destination goal. And the thank you page is example.org contact thank you. The next one are clicks to social media. So if you want to track like clicks off to Facebook or clicks off to your Twitter page or whatever, you can create event tags, all right? Or if you have a PDF download that has a bunch of product information or product specs or whatever, or in our case for the RIM Club, a schematic of the plat map, the map of the whole community. We want to track how many people click on that, so we'll create an event, okay? So in order to do that, we probably need to document all these things, all right? And we've got our metrics matrix. Here's what a real metrics matrix kind of looks like. I've hidden the name of the client that we did this for, but this shows the different category, action, and label activity for events. Now, if you're wondering, all right, events sound great, where do they show up? Well, you can identify them in analytics as a conversion goal, but in the real-time reports, you can also find behavior and events. So here's where all of your event tracking is going to take place. Okay, right over here. Okay, so let's create an event. Now, before I do this, I'm going to show you the metrics matrix that I created for RIM Club, and it's really simple. So this is kind of like my tag management schematic. So I would recommend creating something like this. Let me zoom in a little bit for you here so you can see this. But this includes all the different tags, okay? So I've got categories here. So I've got all my analytics and testing and advertising tags, the tag title for tag manager, the trigger, and then any notes that might apply. So for example, notes for this AdWords remarketing tag are the conversion ID and the conversion label, which we talked about a little bit. So you might want to document all these things. And if you're an agency, I would definitely recommend documenting this and actually selling this as a product to your client, because this is valuable information that they can utilize ongoing throughout the life of their marketing and metrics and measurement program. Okay, so after that, you see a number of different tags for events. Okay, so you'll notice here that I've got a naming convention, and I think naming conventions are extremely important. So you kind of have to decide before you get started what your naming convention will be, so that you don't create a bunch of tags that you don't know what they are. So naming conventions are not only helpful for you, but they're extremely helpful for other members of the team, so you can understand what type of tag you have and what it does and so on. So I noted earlier that this particular website has a number of PDFs available to it or on it. Okay, so for example, I can click on this community plan right here, and this is going to open up a PDF, right? So because it's a PDF, I can't place analytics code on this. However, I typically could place tracking right here on this button. They also have a number of PDFs on their residences page. Move that real quick. And so, for example, if I wanted to click on the floor plan for this Remington model, it's right here. That's a PDF. The Winchester model has a floor plan PDF right here, and so on. So I could, in Tag Manager, create an individual tag for each one of these PDFs. Okay? I'm not going to do that. Let's be a little bit more efficient and smart about how we do this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new tag. Again, here's all the tags to this point. And based on our naming convention, we're going to call this Analytics PDF Events. Okay. And that's going to be a universal analytics tag type. And the tracking ID, we created that custom variable, is analytics ID. And then it's not a page view, it's an event. Okay. And so within the event reports, you have event categories, actions, labels. In this document here, I've identified what the category, action, and label here is bin. Now you're gonna have to do this separately and kind of have a naming convention for this as well, but I'm gonna apply those now so we can see how it works. Okay, content. We're gonna call this download. We're gonna call this PDF download. Okay. Now I'm gonna save this for the time being and come back to it, because one of the things we need to do is add a trigger. So you'll notice before, if I click on any of these, let's go to the summary here. If I click on any of these floor plans, there's nothing else that happens. I want to make sure that there's some activity, some click activity here. So I need to activate, and this is really important. In some cases, you need to activate a trigger that fires a click tracking. Okay. And I'm going to call this click tracking. It's going to be all elements. So this is basically going to track all the clicks, all right? Or at least fire something on all the clicks. Let's save that. Let's publish it. Skip this part. Because without that trigger, I don't know if I clicked on anything. And so let me refresh this page. And I'll hit floor plan. And you can see right here, there's now a GTM click. Okay, and the variables are right here. Okay, variables for that are page host name, page path, page URL, etc. Now that doesn't tell me anything about what happened with this floor plan click. So back in Tag Manager, when we look at our variables, we don't really have a lot in here. There's the analytics ID, which we created. There's some of these kind of out of the box, custom as you go variables. We need to configure some more. If we're using that musical analogy, this is enough to kind of compose something like Mary Had a Little Lamb, but nothing more sophisticated than that. So to get more musical notes available to us, we can configure a lot more. So let's turn some of these events on, such as click element, click class, ID, target, URL. We might have some forms on this site, so let's enable those as well. Okay, so we've got all those in there. All right. Now we're going to close this and we're going to publish the tag. So we've got all those tags or all those variables active. Let's skip that for a moment. Go back to our workspace. We're going to refresh this. And now let's say I'm going to click on this floor plan again. The GTM click has a number of variables associated with it, such as the URL. The click text floor plan, the click URL. So by enabling all those variables, we get a much more robust story that we can tell about what happened with this particular action. Okay. Now you'll notice that on any floor plan that I click that one as well, it doesn't matter which one I click on. The click element always includes .pdf for every one. There's another .pdf, okay, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into analytics, or I'm sorry, Tag Manager, and update my PDF event tag with a trigger. It's a new trigger, and it's going to be PDF. It's called clicks PDF. Okay. We're going to say all elements, not all clicks, but some clicks, and the click element contains .pdf. Let's save that. Now before here, we had an event. Now when this event comes through into analytics, it's going to have content in the category, download in the action, and the label is just going to be PDF download. Because there's no distinguishable characterization between this PDF click and that PDF click. What we're going to do is we're going to pull in the click URL, right? So for example, the click URL right here is the 4-plan Winchester PDF. That's unique to that Winchester PDF plan, okay? So I'm going to go back to Tag Manager and update this to include click URL. Now that variable is going to be pulled in automatically to my tag. And so I'm creating one tag for every PDF on the website. and that's going to track that appropriately. So I'm going to publish that as well. And I'm going to refresh this, and let's just test it real quick. We'll hit the floor plan. Now you notice on this click, Analytics PDF events fired. Now if we look at this a little bit closer, we can see detail related to event category content, event action download, event label PDF download, and it gives me the URL for that particular event. Now back in real-time reports, let's see if it actually came through. So it looks like there's somebody in Mesa, Arizona, and if I go to events, I can see that an event was fired, content download, and the PDF download is right here for the Remington floor plan. So that's how you add PDF events to a tag manager, and any event really. So I've got a number of different events in here that I can add related to request info clicks, telephone clicks, sales, email addresses, and so on. Okay, so I have very different triggers for every event that I've got, and that's going to help me tag my tag manager appropriately and create all these unique tags. Okay, so I'll do another one real quick for us. So let's say we are on, clean this up a little bit. Let's say we're on the contact page, and not only do we want to track the people who fill out this form right here, but we also want to track the people who email Wendy Larchick, who's the salesperson. Okay, and her name is way down here, and maybe we don't have a lot of people who click on that, but we're going to track it anyway, so we want to see that. Okay, so for example, what we'll do here is create a new tag. And we're going to call it Analytics Email Click. We've got our custom analytics ID ready to go. It's an event. And we're going to call this one Contact Click Sales Email. And we're going to pull in the click text for that, because the click text is going to be her name. Okay, so when I click on this, it's going to pop up a window. But you can see on this click right here, there it is. The click text is going to be Wendy Larchick. So I know that that's going to pull through. Okay. And the trigger for this one, I'm going to create a new one. All elements, some clicks, and the click URL, let's check that out again. The click URL is going to, or the click element URL is going to include mail to. So any email click that happens is always going to include mail to. So that's something that we can use there. Okay, so we're going to include mail to there. Save that. We've got our trigger contact, click, sales email, click text. Save it. Go back to our overview. Let's publish that one real quick so we can see if it's going to work in the real-time reporting. Refresh. If I click on Wendy's name right here, you can see that it fired an event on that click, analytics email click. If I jump in there, I can see that it's got all her contact information in there. Okay, so there you have it. I know we're running a little low on time, so what I wanted to do also is kind of talk through a couple other things for us, and then we'll jump into some questions if you guys have time and availability. So in terms of a setup checklist, this is in the resource guide that I provided as well. This is how I typically create a tag manager account. So I'll create a container, enable those variables that you'll want. So you've got a lot of different musical notes at your disposal, so you can create some really beautiful music. Create a constant variable. And so that constant variable would be like the analytics ID, or things that you know you're going to use quite a bit, quite often, as you create all your different tags and your event tracking and things like that. Create an all elements click trigger. So that's going to allow you to make sure that you're tracking those clicks whenever something clicks, so you can track events and things like that. Document all tags. So you saw that I was using like a Google Sheet or a Google Doc to document all those tags, and so I've got a nice record that I can remember everything, but I can also share with clients and colleagues and things like that. And that's going to include tags, triggers, the unique selectors that we're using to identify PDFs or mail tos or telephone clicks, anything like that. And then configure all your tags, test it, and publish. Okay. Now, as we get more sophisticated, there are different tags we can utilize. So for example, there you can track YouTube activity. So we won't have enough time to actually go through that today, but this link down below and in the resource guide that I'll provide in that link that I provided initially will walk you through how to track YouTube clicks or YouTube plays. And so what it does is it tracks the initial play, but it also fires events when you go 25, 50, 75, and all the way through your YouTube video. So you can see how far people are getting into that video. It fires an event, just like we saw with our PDFs or our emails. And that event will not only show the video ID, but it'll show the video title. So you can kind of keep that squared away within your tracking. Error page tracking. So what this does, and if we have time, I'll show you this one. But what it does is it allows you to track when you've got a 404 error. Okay, and so most often 404 errors have something distinguishable about them. So for example, if I just go into here and say blah 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 and hit return, I'm going to get an error page. Okay, and so in the title of this page, I've got page not found right up above. That's something that you can distinguish. The header is error 404. That's something that you can distinguish. And so with this type of thing, what you can do is create custom variables to pull in the title. So for example, let's do that real quick. I'm going to create a new variable called document title. Okay, now this is a little bit more advanced, but it's a JavaScript variable. And the global variable name is document.title. Okay, and if I hit save on that and I publish it, now if I go back into here and look at my page view variable, I'll see document title right here. And it's actually pulling the title of the page. So what that'll allow me to do is create a trigger that says if document title is page not found, then fire this event that says this was the page that an error occurred. Here's the page that it occurred on, and here's how to fix it. And so what I'll do as a follow-up to this webinar is actually create a video that shows you how to do that. And I'll also create a different YouTube video one as well, so you guys can see all that. Okay. What else do we have for you? A couple other things. So scroll tracking. So for pages that are extremely lengthy, if you've got a lot of activity or a lot of content, you want to see how far people are scrolling down. What the scroll tracking event does is it allows you to track how many people get 25%, 50%, 75, and 100% the way down the page, so that you can track that as an event. Now, this is not only helpful for really lengthy pages, but it's also helpful for like scroller sites where you're not really leaving the page, you're just kind of moving down the page. So almost like single page websites that you see a lot these days. You can use a scroll tracking mechanism. Again, I don't have enough time today to show you that, but the idea behind it comes from this scroll depth plugin. Okay, and so what this does, and there's links to this as well as a really helpful post to show you how to set it up in Google Tag Manager, but here's 25% right there. it'll give you very explicit instructions on how to do that. I might actually create a separate video here for that, and make sure that everybody on the webinar has access to that if you'd like that. Okay. Last one I've got for you is adjusted bounce rate. So adjusted bounce rate helps us understand, or just get a better understanding of bounces. Okay, so what it does is it allows us to create a timer trigger. And so bounce rate is a little confusing because what a bounce is essentially is someone comes to your page, they don't visit any other pages, and they just leave. And typically in analytics that looks like failure, but it's really not necessarily. So if I go to, for example, that Rim Club page and I see what I see and I like what I see, and I pick up the phone and call, and I buy a golf membership or a home, that sounds like success to me, but I didn't have to go to any other pages to do so. So what this allows you to do is include other measures of engagement, specifically time, into the equation, and it adjusts your bounce rate to get a more realistic and healthy understanding of what your bounce rate was. Okay, so it uses a timer trigger. And how that looks like, what that looks like real quick, I'll show you, is in analytic, or in the tag manager, you can create a trigger. We'll create a new one. We're going to call this 30 seconds, or timer 30 seconds. Okay. And the trigger type is timer. And this is measured in milliseconds. So multiply however many you want by 1,000. Just add 3 zeros. So if we want to say this is 30 seconds, it's 30. Okay. And the limit is the number of times this is going to fire. So I only want this to fire one time. And so we're just going to say 1. And it's going to fire every time someone stays on the site for 30 seconds. Now, if I save this, oh, and I want to apply this to every single page on the site. So this is a little tricky. We're going to say page path. We're going to use some regular expression here, is dot star. Now, I realize this is a little advanced, but what this is essentially saying is make sure that you fire this page on every single page, or fire this trigger on every single page. And so it's going to fire, that's what dot star means, is everything. So we're going to save that. And now that that's going, that will fire on every time someone spends 30 seconds on a page, and it'll show right here. Now, you can also fire an event when that occurs, and that'll adjust your bounce rate for you. You can do some things within analytics to set that up properly. Okay. The last one here, I know we're up on time, is just e-commerce. So this is probably, to talk about e-commerce tracking and Google Tag Manager, probably would take an hour at least all by itself. But essentially there's two types. There's standard e-commerce tracking, and there's enhanced e-commerce. Standard e-commerce essentially is what you use for shopping carts like Shopify or WooCommerce or things like that, where it's very simple setup and it's not too extravagant. You need enhanced e-commerce when you're doing a custom build, and you need to work with a developer to place information on the purchase confirmation page. Now that information is typically called the data layer, and very specific information needs to sit in the data layer to let Google Analytics know that, number one, a transaction occurred, and here are all the relative or relevant details to go along with it. Okay. So again, we could talk for another hour on this one. If you guys have specific questions about e-commerce tracking, just feel free to call me or shoot me an email, whatever. Here's a number of Tag Manager resources. All of these are available within that packet that you've got at that link, but a number of really smart people who are creating some great content about Tag Manager here. Again, don't feel the need to write all this down. You're going to have access to it because it's all available at this link right here, teach2fishdigital.com/tags, and you've got my contact information there if you have any questions. Okay. Now, speaking of questions, I totally monopolized all the time. I apologize for that. If you have a question, feel free to let me know in the comments, okay, or the chat, and I can unmute you, and we can talk through that question. Or if you want to call me offline or shoot me an email offline, that's fine too. But if you have a question that you'd like to discuss with all of us here right now, feel free to let me know in the chat. I'll unmute you, and we can talk through it. All right. I'm not seeing many questions come through, and that's okay. I really appreciate everybody's time. Sorry we weren't able to get through all the detail explicitly, but again, what I will do is I'll create some videos and follow up on YouTube tracking and 404 error page tracking, scroll depth, adjusted bounce rate, all that good stuff, and I'll make sure you guys have it. That'll give me something to do between Christmas and New Year's. Speaking of which, I hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. I hope 2016 was good to you. I hope 2017 is even better. Stay in touch. Love you. I'll talk to you later.